Sketch fans. This is John once again, and you have located the Sketch Podcast. I am here, as always, with Bob Hickey and Bill Nichols, and tonight our topic will be constructing the cover. How you doing, guys?
Doing great, John. How are you?
I'm excellent, and that was Bill,
Hey, John, this is Bob. How you doing, bud?
and there's Bob. I'm doing fantastic. So, constructing the cover, a very important task because, of course, the cover is what draws the reader in. The cover is the first thing they see on the shelf or the table if they happen to be at a con. So, what goes into a good cover?
Um, well, even before this podcast, we were talking about how some of us have been retailers or worked in retail and stuff like that. So, as we get into it, some things we need to be thinking about is where this cover is going to be shown, like you said. Is it going to be in stores? Is it strictly a con issue? Or is it strictly a digital issue? So those are three factors you really need to take in designing your covers. Or are you just a traditionalist and you want to do it as cover's always been? So what are some factors out there? Say you're a traditionalist designing a cover. Bill?
Okay. One thing, very important thing is your logo. You have to figure out where you want that logo, as well as your cover image. Those things work in conjunction, and sometimes they work sort of against each other, but you have to sort of take in the elements of all the things that you're going to do for that book or that issue. If this is say your logo for the entire run of your book, are you going to put it at the top where it is visible if it was, say, on a newsstand type situation, that kind of rack? Or are you going to go against the grain and put it somewhere else on the cover? You really have to look at that as a design element.
Right. So you're saying the cover dress. That's sort of the term they use. Is that, think about your cover dress. If you're doing a mini series or whatever, 4 issues, 3 issues, whatever, where things are going to be at the same place on each cover, if possible.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I've here and there I've seen a few experiments with that, but even those things where whoever designed the cover maybe changed it up a little bit. Each issue maybe had the logo worked into the actual, like as a billboard, say, or something into the actual art. But even there, it was a theme.
Right.
But it was still striking, and in that sense, it worked as far as a design element.
Well, one of the first things you got to think about is your logo, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and we're not even talking about design logos. That's a whole nother podcast. But you got to have a logo that's legible, easy to read. You can see it from a distance, especially if you're looking at this thing being at conventions or in a store. People are standing anywhere 3 to 6 feet away from you. They gotta be able to read it. It's like a billboard. It's your billboard. Real fancy, real cursive, real busy logos may or may not work for you. So
yeah, I've seen some that don't. You have to.
Oh yeah. So and you gotta play with your colors and the logo. Really play with the contrast. What do you think about covers that are drawn by other artists because they're really cool and they draw great, but yet they don't put anything on the inside?
As a fan, I like that sometimes.
Now, as a fan or as a collector?
I guess maybe a little bit of both, because there are a lot of artists that I'm a fan of, and sometimes that's the only recent example, say, of their work.
Right.
Maybe that they do a cover, and like Dave Dorman used to do all kinds. He'd do these awesome covers. That was a way to get some Dave Dorman art, and I mean there were others, but it's not a deal breaker for me sometimes if I know that going in. But I mean we've grown up with the big companies, say, we'll say Marvel, having maybe had a cover that had nothing to do really with the inside art, and that is sort of disappointing. It can be. So it's from both perspectives. I don't know.
My thoughts on it, and this is just a recent thought, is that here recently Marvel's been doing your standard cover, and then they've been doing the variant covers, and they're all like a buy 10 of this and you get one of these variants to buy. and you get a J. Scott Campbell, or you get, a theme of the month if it's Iron Man covers or Wolverine covers or whatever. And they're sort of nice, and there's people who collect those because they feel like those are smaller runs. There's less of those books out there, and they may become more collectible. I mean, I'm always a fan. I used to be a fan, of say if John Byrne did a cover, cool, awesome. George Perez did a cover, awesome. But when you crack that book open, it still has a stand up. You can't crack open a George Perez cover and have stick figures on the inside.
Right.
So you're not going to sell that book. So, John, you got quiet on us.
No, I was just listening to. I was listening to all the good information. I have gotten burned once or twice on that whole cover thing, though.
Uh-huh.
So, especially if you're buying trades, that tends to happen a lot. That you won't always have the you won't always have the interior artist doing the cover art. Especially Marvel is especially guilty of that, actually.
Right.
Especially if it tends to be a book that features or is even starring a female character, you'll tend to have like your Greg Horn or Greg Land
J.
or
Scott Campbell.
J. Scott Campbell. Yeah. Occasionally, Michael Turner art will still pop up, which I'll gladly buy anything Michael Turner ever did, but. It is a little disconcerting to get that and then go inside and, it's just the most absolute horrid mess you've ever seen. So you do have to be smart as a consumer these days, especially with making sure, you're getting what you want out of the book.
Right. I think the worst case is Marvel's done this also is where they'll throw a J. Scott Campbell cover on something. You crack it open and it's this real simplistic manga artwork on the inside, and you're going, huh? And they'll do it on characters that you sort of want to read, maybe X-Men or something like that, but you're just going, and I personally just go, no. I don't care to look at that art on the inside. I love the cover, but for $3.99 or $2.99, no, it's not going to happen. So I always think.
I think a lot of.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was about to say, I think a lot of times that it happens a lot more when they have new artists that they're trying out.
Sure.
Or, someone who's not necessarily the highest profile. They'll throw those alternate artist covers on those to, well, it's a blatant attempt to suck people in. Yeah.
Well, they'll do something like
so.
a Hero for Hire book. And they'll say, buy 10 of this book and you get this J. Scott Campbell cover. Well, I have fans of J. Scott Campbell. So you normally might sell 3 or 4 copies of Heroes for Hire, but you might bump it up to 10 to get that Campbell book to get the $10 to offset buying those extra issues, which then you actually end up breaking even or losing money. So it really didn't benefit you, other than you did take care of a customer. So. And Marvel knows this. They know the game they're playing. What retailers want to play it. We played it when I owned a store. I mean, we had to. We had customers that wanted covers. We did the whole collect up 40 copies of this, traded in for this limited edition because I had a customer that wanted all the Deadpool covers. So it was crazy. I'll let Bill Love, who worked for me and still works at the shop, handle it, but they do it. Now, I really like when you've got solid work inside, so you've got nice covers. And I personally, when I look at the future projects we're working on, say, Camelot Forever, I've got Eddie Newell drawing the insides. We'll definitely have an Eddie Newell cover for the standard copy. But do I contact somebody like, I know Dave Dorman, maybe have a cover? Do we contact David Michael Beck, a friend of mine, who's done all the G.I. Joe covers, and he's done all kinds of stuff? Do we contact him for an alternative cover? Or something they did with Joe, which was nice, is for a back cover highlighting characters. If you all remember the early Devil's Due G.I. Joes was cool because he had the nice covers on the front with Campbell and a bunch of people. Then each issue had a David Michael Beck cover on the back, which was just a single character. showing off a single character. So there's a lot of things that you can do like that to make variants, and of course the variants are shorter run. But designing a nice cover, we start with a nice logo. We have that. Now, what are you looking for on the cover? What will entice you?
Well, I would say now I would look at something about the book inside, because I've said it before. I don't buy new comics anymore. I mean, there's no comic shop locally, and I look at trades a lot, say at Barnes and Noble and stuff. That's where I go for my books. But I have been to Chicago like 2 years ago. But I mean, I play catch up, and I get a crash course in what's new and what's come out lately. And every so often, I might see some. I do get the emails from Marvel, that have the new covers and all that stuff. And thankfully, they show some of the interior art, so you do get a sample. I can see, because sometimes they don't match. The covers, what we were talking about before, the covers are maybe really nice, and the insides are different style, or the cover it's okay, but it's by maybe a fan favorite artist, and the insides are actually pretty decent. A little information about the cover, something that will draw me in, make me want to buy that book.
Okay.
That sort of whets that appetite.
Are you looking for? Okay, a big thing now with Marvel is group shots or character shots. Wolverine standing there with a few other characters, the X-Men all grouped together, Iron Man. Are you looking for something? When you think of your covers, do you look at, okay, I'm doing 4 issues here. So cover 1 should be the group shot to introduce everybody. Cover number 2 maybe be something on the inside because we want them involved in the story. You know what I mean? Remember the old Prez covers for Justice League and Justice Society where he packed all kinds of stuff in there, and you knew so-and-so was blowing up something and all this action, and it was on the cover. It told us what the story was about on the cover. You don't see a whole lot of that right now. You see some really pretty posters on your covers right now.
Right, and I've seen ads for some of those same covers as posters and as prints, and I mean that's another thing that they have to look at. Getting things on the back end through whether it's their store or whatever. So that for them, I know that that's a merchandising decision too. But sometimes if you use that as your cover, you're sort of playing it safe. And like I said before, I respect clever. I've seen the issues of the covers for issues of a miniseries maybe, or a story arc where they form one tableau, and that is, to me, if you can pull that off, if you were George Perez, yes, you could do it, any day of the week, because he's good, he's awesome, but each cover is its own separate cover, but it's also part of a whole. That to me is clever, and then that gives me something that is intriguing, and that appeals to another sense, another sense of my comics love, or my my comics brain, whatever. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a really bad example, maybe of that, but off the top of my head. But I don't know. I do like clever, and it doesn't make me say it's sort of intellectual in a way, maybe not, but to like something for just other than pretty pictures.
Right.
We'll say.
Right.
So picture and some, usually the title and some logo, where it's almost like as if they have thought about what they're putting on the cover, rather than just take something that they've gotten a freelancer to do, or they paid somebody to do a cover kind of thing as a.
Well, so many people nowadays, they look at a cover, and I've caught myself with the new property Camelot Forever, is I'm like, okay, now that's going to make a nice print. It's designed something that sort of gets people hooked, but then we can do nice prints, we can do lithos, we can do this, this, and this. Because being a small studio, we got to try to merchandise everything as much as we can in different areas. You know what I mean?
Right.
But let's go back to cover. The cover, you have to have a logo. You have to have a solid image. You need to have the creators' names on it, I believe. So
Right.
at visual, I'm looking for a name that I recognize or don't. A studio name. There again, I'm looking for something that to catch me here. Is it Top Cow? Is it Marvel? Is it Arcana? Who's this coming from? Have I heard from them before I pick it up? Okay, nothing's still hitting me. Next, give me a little blurb. Tell me something. You know, entice me with just a few words to pick that cover up. So you've got your logo has to grab me, your artworks have to grab me. I'm looking at the name to see if I know who you are. I'm looking at the studio to try to figure out if I know who you are. Good thing is I'm still looking, so something there's working. Next, give me a blurb. Within the blurb, I can figure out something about it. The odds are I'm going to pick it up. At least crack it open and see. Now I know this seems like whoa, this is way overthinking about it, but it's really not.
No.
Being a retailer, I cannot. Well, being an ex-retailer, I cannot hand sell every book out there.
Right.
And truthfully, the books I'm going to hand sell are going to be the ones I'm going to sell 10, 20, 30, 50 copies of. Because I've got them sitting there, I got to move them. So the independent stuff, like what I'm publishing, no matter who picks up this property, still going to be independent. You get 2 or 3 copies of that. So I got to help that retailer as much as possible sell my book.
Right.
By being the best piece of artwork, the best coloring, placement, and everything. So you've got to put all the elements together to try to sell them. That's why I'm saying, go all the way. Your logo, your name, your studio, great piece of artwork, and a blurb. Tell me something inside. Don't have to be a paragraph, but a blurb. I got this book and I was trying to find it here. I couldn't find it. It's something librarians. I forget who published it. It's one of the smaller publishers. I went to the shop last week. I saw the cover. I'm like, that's interesting. 1 and 2's out. Don't know why I passed up on 1, but the artwork was quirky, looked nice, solid coloring, and it was something like I don't know something librarian something. And I'm like, that's sort of weird. I picked it up. The artwork looks solid. I have not read it yet. I went ahead and bought 1 and 2. They're sitting here for me to read. So it's sort of like it caught me. One of those aspects caught me enough to make me not only buy 1, but go ahead and grab 1 and 2 to give it a shot. Now, if I come back for 3, we'll see. Story's got to grab me now.
Right.
When is it a good time to use a wraparound cover? You're talking about. I love. I'd say this being an ex-retailer, I can say it. I love gimmick covers.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Kamiko when they did Mage and they did the wraparound covers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I loved Mage. I was nuts about that book. Matt Wagner.
Yeah.
That was
Tell me
so
about
cool. Yeah, that was very cool. DC Marvel over the years has used a few wraparound. I love group shots.
Yeah.
And that's something I want to do a Skystorm in the future. Is I want to get a group fold out cover design with all of our characters, whether it's for our Who's Who book or what. I love that kind of stuff. I bought a $40 Thor collection because it had a tri-fold out poster of this beautiful shot, updated stuff of all the Thor characters on it. I was like, wow, that is awesome. It had some Jack Kirby artwork stories in it, which, hey, that was good in itself. But this poster was beautiful. And then they had a breakdown of the poster with the numbers and names and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, that's nice.
yeah. So it was like, wow, okay, I'll take it. This is too cool. So covers are very, very, very important. And then building your cover, you need to think of where it's going to go. In a store, at a convention. We all hope we get into stores, I guess. I guess most people hope they get their books in the stores. So building a successful cover, what do you have to do to get it into the store to help them sell it? What are the aspects that you're looking at that racking, displaying, where are you going to be? How can you build a successful cover?
Well, I think if you have a local shop that you can, and you're on good terms with the the retailers there or the clerks or whoever, if you've got a mock-up of your cover or even actually the cover in progress, get some feedback.
Yeah.
What's it going to take? I mean, that's a resource that's right there.
Right.
I mean, you have friends. I mean, when we used to do uh, conventions and I did the portfolio reviews, and 2 or 3 guys would come in the same row at the same time. Uh, it seemed that some of them seemed surprised when I would say, do you show your work to your friend here? And maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but I'm like, that's a resource right there. Uh, and your comic shops are the same thing. I mean, it's right there that you can draw on their experience, because these are people that you're shooting to. You're hoping to put your book in their shop.
Right.
Plus, that sets up sort of giving you a home base for your book, your studio, your company, whatever. A store, a retailer that you have ties to that help, who in turn may help you sell more books than you ever thought.
Right.
Just because you are local, and we've talked about local artists before too. But what's going to sell that book in that store? I mean, what kind of clientele? Because you may have 2 or 3 retailers. You may be lucky to have that many retailers within quick traveling distance where you can get a variety of opinions, because what works in one may not work as much, just partly because of the setup or the racking or even lighting,
Right.
stuff like that, the nuances.
Well, I think what you got to look, local stores are great. But you got to look in general all stores. If you're going to go through Diamond, you're going to get distributed. You're going either going to be full face out, which if you are, you're very lucky, or you're going to be half or 3/4 face out in a waterfall type shelf. And that's where you're stuck into a pocket, and only a top third or top half of your book is shown. So within that area, can you sell your book? When the top third of your book, can you sell it? Because that's all people are going to see once it's off the new rack. But sometimes there's some stores out there that never even full face out any books. They automatically go into pockets, and then they get a little tag put on new this week. And I never liked that setup, but there's stores out there, I've seen them. So within the top half or top third of your top book, can you sell it? Can you put on there enough to make somebody want to pick it up? And those are factors that you got to think about if you're going that route. If you're going the distributor route, store route, you got to think about, how can I sell this book with only a third of my cover? Now, some people don't give a dang. They're going to put it out and the way they want it, design it the way they want it. They're the artist, and that's fine. It's your property. You do. We're just trying to give you most successful ways and things to think about when you are doing that. If you're doing conventions only and you're building your sales online and conventions, you don't have to worry about racking at that point. Have fun with it. And there's properties with Skystorm we're going to do that way. We're going to go heavy digital, and anything we go to print will be for online sales and for convention sales. We can do anything we want with those covers. We can put the logos top, logos on the bottom, logos right up the side, no logo, do anything we want. Because we're hand selling that at that point in time. We're creating ourselves, either online with previews, online with pushing at conventions. We're hand selling it. I would never design a new issue without a logo. I mean, I might have a variant cover without a logo, but I have at least a name on at least one. So people walking by might recognize that name because they saw it online or they seen it in some post or something, and it might grab them. But, yeah, you need to think about where it's going to go before you construct your cover. It's very important.
Well, there's a couple of things you have to remember with both those things you mentioned. One, with digital, you have to remember that your cover at some point is going to get potentially shrunk down to as small as like 120 by 120. Could even be 60 by 60 on some things.
Right.
So if there's not something about your cover that pops out, the eye of the viewer is going to jump right over that. There's got to be something, and this is true for pretty much every cover anywhere. There's got to be something about your cover that's going to make someone visually want to stop. It's true for the con table. I mean, I myself have walked down the center of a two-sided row.
How dare you?
And scanned every book for a fraction of a second in that one row, and just walked right through and not stopped because nothing caught me.
Right.
You know, you've gotta catch me to get my limited teacher funds.
Right.
I'm not a $1 million organization. I can't buy every book out there. You really got to sell me on your book. And that's true with digital. That's true with the comic rack. If your book looks like everything Marvel puts out, and yours is a name that I've never heard of, I'm not going to bother with you. If there's nothing on that cover that is going to really pull me in. Some of the things you were saying, one thing I always kind of liked that, somewhat shows my age, but speaking covers where people would talk.
Wow.
On the cover, would say something, like they're putting out one of those giant size DC things for Justice League. And I forget the numbering, but it's one of those covers that is a big group shot with one of the characters saying, "Don't touch me or the world will explode," or something like that,
Right.
Now that's something like that's at least going to make me stop long enough and pick it up and go, okay, why is the world going to explode if someone touches him? I'll at least stop long enough to flip through it.
Right. That plays upon the blurb concept.
Yeah, or having that thing in the corner that says, in this issue, everyone dies. Probably the chance is pretty good not everyone's going to die in that issue.
Right.
But it did stop the person long enough for them to take more than that 1 second look of an image. And that's really all you've got.
Yep.
To catch people. You've got like 1 to maybe 10 on the outside seconds to really catch somebody's eye before they move on to the next thing.
Right.
In any medium.
Yep.
Digital, con, or comic book shelf. It's all the same. And it's true with any sort of publication. Magazine racks have the same problem. Look at how many different magazines there are now for graphic design. Or for, entertainment magazines. Going to a Borders, like Bill said, there's at least a good 75 to 100 entertainment magazines.
Oh, yeah.
That come out every month. So, you've really got to be a draw, and, at least 75, if not a higher percentage of those are telling the exact same story.
Right.
It's 100 things on the latest Iron Man movie, or 100 things on yet another Twilight movie, or whatever the case may be. But as a designer, you've really got to pull people in quickly.
Yes.
Or you're not going to sell. I mean, we've all lived long enough to see many a comics magazine come and go. I'm old enough to remember a few really good magazines that are now gone. I mean, I actually still miss Starlog.
Right.
I desperately miss Starlog magazine because I was an avid reader of that for years. But that went belly up. So, it's definitely something to keep in mind.
John, I agree with you. When you talk about the talking covers, I always envision those old Supermans.
Yeah,
Like stay away from that monkey. It's covered in kryptonite or something. I don't know. It's the death of
right.
Superman. The covers made a statement about what was inside. Those were cool covers, but nowadays, I mean, I totally get the whole, every cover's a pinup, basically. And
Right.
everybody's trying to get as much out of that pinup as possible. And I get it. Running a studio, I totally get that whole concept of that. Everything has to have a multi-purpose. But you also got to give me something on the inside of it. X Factor
Well, there's
cover I passed up today. It had Wolfbane pregnant and some dude standing behind her holding her, and showing her belly. And I'm like, nah, not enough
yeah.
there to tell me to pick it up to see what's inside. Now, if I was an X Factor fan and I love those characters, I've probably been all over it. But I read it when the book falls into other storylines that I'm doing on the X stuff. But no, that cover wasn't enough to grab me. So
Well, there's two big mistakes that a lot of covers are making now too. One, this trend to go completely naked of everything except a single cover image.
mhm.
Like I get it, but it does nothing for me. And really, it's only the big boys that can usually get away with that because their characters are well known enough
Right, right.
that they can buy that. Or, I didn't really care for, and this was a big Marvel thing for a while, where they had the frame
Hmm.
with everybody's face. Every Marvel character's face was in the frame, and then whoever's book it was in the center of the frame.
Right.
I didn't really like that so much. And then the other thing, and sadly, this is a Marvel thing too, and I don't mean for this to be a bash on Marvel thing, but they're guiltiest of it. When they do books lately, they invariably seem to sell out
Yeah.
quite quickly, and then they'll come out with that variant cover or that different cover, and uh, I'm always suspect that so many books are selling out.
Well,
I really wish they would utilize the back cover more, as you were saying a while ago. Because I really think that's something that a lot of companies got away from was utilizing the back cover for something more than just the latest video game ad or
right.
whatever.
Um, Sort of take up for Marvel, and I don't want to get in the whole distribution thing,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
what happened was a couple years ago, Diamond, who's the major distributor of comics, decided they
Hmm.
weren't going to warehouse as many back issues as they had in the past. Marvel decided to print exact print runs of initial printings. So that sort of fell through because they were constantly reprinting all the time,
Right.
but they were printing small amounts. So they've sort of fallen midway. So I sort of get if you've got a book and all of a sudden that storyline catches on or has a cool character, it's going to sell out. They'll go back with a new cover. Yeah, that second printing is a little less, or probably a lot less
Mm.
than the initial printing, and it's sort of got more books out there. On the flip side, the second cover is probably more valuable than the first one because there is less.
Right.
But I know Image is doing some of that stuff, like and I'm sort of glad in some ways that some companies are because Morning Glory, I haven't read it yet. I know Shadowline's involved, and that's one of the companies we're talking to. So I wanted to see
Right.
what it was. Well, two came out. I grabbed it, but one was sold out. So then three came out today, along with a second printing of one. So I'm able to grab second printing of one. I had two. I've got three now. So I'm going to sit down and read all three, look at the packaging, just get a feel on what this book's about. So it's sort of a good thing. Is it a tool? Is it a hype? Sure. Does it work? Sometimes. I know we sold a book called Chew in the store. They were
Right.
constantly going back to print with that book. Readers were constantly coming in asking us for copies of it. So there was a purpose to it. So I think it works very well for some small independents who are building their readerships. They're working the medias, they're working the Facebooks and websites and the chat boards, and they got people out there wanting the book. So they're constantly kicking up another printing, throwing a different cover on it. Sure.
Well, I think in the case of Chew, that was definitely something that built a following, word of mouth, and over the internet, and a lot of those other things, because it was kind of became the little book that could. After a while, you'd hear from it from someone, a friend of a friend, sort of thing.
Right.
And they'd say it was really good, and then
podcasts started
really
picking up.
Yeah, right. Podcasts, some reviews on websites and podcasts really started picking up. So, yeah, that was definitely one that sort of built on its own. But I think it's really odd because having worked in a bookstore for several years, I find it extremely odd that any second printing of a book is more valuable than
It'd be less.
a first printing. So yeah, it's odd.
Yeah, but
that is true.
There's less of them. So how do you look at it?
Right.
Do you look at it that it's not the original, or you look at quantities available on the market?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, but it's very true.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think this Morning Glory or Morning Glories, they're sort of falling in behind Chew here. They're constantly being reprinted. Like I said, I haven't read it, don't know anything about it yet. Looking forward to it. But yeah, I mean, they definitely kick in some different covers, and I think a lot of times on a second round of covers, you could take and play with it a little bit. You could maybe do a single figure on a second round cover that maybe you didn't want to do on the first round cover because you needed to sell the story. If you're going second printing, people are looking for you, so you sort of different deal. There's a pinup we got from Eddie. It's the only published piece of artwork out there, and I posted it on Facebook, and I noticed Eddie reposted it the other day. So
did you get a lot of positive response?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's a headshot of Arthur and Merlin, and it's a really cool piece. But it really isn't cover image because of the way Arthur sits real high, Merlin's dead center, which is great. But I'll look at this piece and I'll go, this is beautiful, but I can't use it for a cover. I'd have to make the logo really small to fit it in, do it, just get real Camelot Forever. It's a lot of letters, so you gotta have some room to put that logo on there. He turned in another piece, which we have not gone public about, but I'll describe it. We call it our one sheet, sort of our promotional poster. And the way this story sets up is the past is in gray washes and highly detailed, and the current time is traditional comic book inks and colors. With this one sheet, what he did, he set up a single image down the middle, and he has one character from the past. He has another character from modern day with her arm around his arm, pulling him across the center. So it's really cool imagery. And he's got other characters set up around the side. But that one's set up that you can lay in a logo across the top, and it's just knock your socks off. So a lot, and it tells part of the story, part of the concept of what's inside. Showing the past, showing the present. It sort of gets you a feel of, whoa, what the heck is this? So I'm anxious to get that image out there. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks we can get it colored up and get it out there.
What do you think of those covers that make the logo part of the cover image? Do you know what I mean? It's actually ingrained within the image in some way.
To me, there's only one man that could pull it off, and that was Will Eisner.
Really?
I don't like the billboards. I don't like the rock falling over top of the Incredible Hulk. I'm just not a fan of it. And actually, Will Eisner's, those were chapter titles more than they were
Right.
covers, because back then there were chapter titles, and
Yeah.
every chapter, every story had one. He was a
Hmm.
master. Oh my gosh, he made it fun. Um, mm, I personally not a fan of it. Anytime you
Right.
make the logo too busy, and I say that, and I look at Camelot Forever's logo, going, okay, Bob. Um, it takes away from it. It really
Right.
just like, okay, what's the night? If I gotta look for the title, you done lost one of your strikes of landing me.
Right.
Um, you know,
Yeah, I was thinking when you mentioned the character or the shot with Arthur and
uh
Merlin.
huh.
For some reason, I envisioned Camelot Forever, but going behind them
Hmm.
as if it was something on a wall behind them.
Right. But
But then it occurred to me that would not be good for a first
nope.
issue because they would obscure some letters,
Y-
and people would have to discern what those letters were for themselves,
Yeah.
and that might not work out. Now, that might eventually be a good thing once the book is out and catches on.
Right. Yeah. Really early on, you don't want to obscure your logo at all. You don't want a head
Right,
in the middle of it, or arm or sword or Spider-Man web going across the logo,
right,
because you're trying to embed in your readership, and you're bringing in those new readers by working the medias and getting a podcast. They got to be able to find it. They got to be able to see it. That logo's got to be clearly posted. So yeah, you really don't want to mess with the logo too much in the beginning. Later on, once you're established, and you've got that readership, it's growing, they're looking for your work. Sure, you know, you can play around with it a little bit at that point in time. But early on in the book, now you really need to have all your buttons working for you. You need to have everything possibly there, and covers are busy. Let's get real. You got seconds.
mhm,
You have just a couple seconds to sell, and that's what a cover's about. You've got to sell that property in just a couple of seconds. It's unbelievable um, how quickly people will walk by you and not give you a second look. So you got to have everything working in your favor that you can. Bill.
Yeah, well, you guys were on a tear, but I was just thinking, putting some of those things together. I was helping Chris know with his latest pitch. Uh, it's called Snack, and he has the logo that he's designed, and it stands out. He has a cover image that is sort of stark, and it's visible from several feet away easily. And he has a little bit about, but pretty much the only thing I just had one little quibble with, say, the color thing. I like symmetry in some things, and that was an easy fix. He just changed something to red, but it's with that that would be a good example of the things that we've been talking about, where things have just come together, and I think it would work. And plus, as John said, that was a good point, that if it's reduced down and your cover is too busy, you're going to lose. Uh, it's hard to see some of these little, very small squares of what something is. But like I said, Chris is an example of that cover is one that is done with that in mind. And I wish I could show everybody. And it'll be out there at some point. So, but like I said, it's the pitch cover, and some of these examples that we've been talking about, that's the one that springs to mind, because I have, like, when I had a comic store, we had the magazine rack for the new comics, where just the top was visible, and you really have to grab somebody's attention unless it's a very known title. And then when Matt had his store, Alternate Realities, and I was just a consultant or whatever there, he had the open. So I've seen both ways work, but even within those two very different setups, you have to have an example that works in. If you're going for a store, for example, as we said before, if you're going for a store, you have to look at what you're going to go for. If you're going digital, I mean, we've pretty much run the gamut on a lot of this design stuff and what you really need to shoot for, and as well as our personal likes and dislikes, maybe. But so.
Well, I think what we've really come up with, you need an attractive image. You need to be able to tell the story with the image, and it needs to be a nice, complete package. And you need to know where you're going to take it. If you're going in stores through distributors, you need to really think about logo placement, about racking, and these things people really don't think about. Early on, I didn't think about where the logo should go because of where the store might rack it or put it or something like that. So yeah, I think we've pretty well nailed covers. We're not going to sit here and tell you exactly how to draw your covers.
Yeah, we can't do it for you, kids. You got to do your own.
Well, you remember Marvel Age, the little mini
Yeah.
thing
I
that they,
love that thing.
yeah. And I remember
That had the best work.
Ed Hannigan did a lot of cover designs and stuff.
Right.
And I mean, Ed's on Facebook and some other places too. But
right.
Yeah, it would show a cover in process and then show the final thing. And if I don't know if that's on Marvel.com, but it should be really on how to design a cover, or there should be an entire tutorial on that, because those were just cool things to see the process, not just the characters or the whatever, but to see his cover design, and maybe he designed it and somebody else drew it. That happened a couple of times, I think,
right.
Or maybe more than that. But and then to see that other artist's version of his cover layouts. So
another cool thing
cool.
you can do with that nowadays is we all got Facebooks, we all got WordPress. However you're promoting this product, we have them out there. Maybe you do off some roughs that you really like, you can't pick. Kick them out there. Let the people say, which one do you guys like? Pick out the top two, finish them up a little tighter, kick them out there. Let the fans almost choose what the cover is going to be. They're the ones going to send you the money. They're the ones going to buy it. They're the ones that they care enough about your property. They're following you online and they're commenting on this. These are the ones that's going to go to the store and say, hey, I want this book and I really think it's going to sell for you. So you're building some trust within that readership also. So if you're not sure, throw it out there. So there's several ways to go with it. Bulletin boards, your own sites. However, maybe we could even start something over at the sketch bulletin boards. Covers, kick the covers on here, and get critiqued and make them better or something like that. I don't know. But
yeah, we always said from the very beginning, we always said we were very happy to critique people who wanted honest, real critiques of their work. So
yeah, we're not going to tear you up just to tear you up. It's not the kind of boards we have, right? If you want honest, we're going to go in there and say, look, if you tweak this and this, it's going to help your sales, or man, you got it down, run with it, yeah. So yeah, that might be something. I'm sure there's a portfolio or something section over at Intel. I haven't been over there for a while, guys. I apologize. It's been crazy, but I'm sure there's a place over there they could build a page and go with it.
Oh yeah.
Use our boards and use the good people who contribute to those boards. They are great. Mm-hmm. So, guys, covers. I'm sure it's again as young as this podcast is. We will be back talking about covers because we could go
certainly
deep into wraparound covers. We could go deep into jam covers. Hopefully, we have some examples coming up out of our studio even. But I think that's it for the night. What's been going on over at the online, John?
Oh, a few things here and there. A few things. Let's see. The most recent one being how to draw graffiti, which used to be considered kind of visual litter, but in recent times has become kind of its own little art form. And a few fairly prominent people started out as graffiti artists and then went on to be clothing designers, and one of them became a cake maker.
Wow.
So, yeah, Duff Goldman from Ace of Cakes used to be a graffiti artist, but he went on to do cakes. Mark Echo, you know, and I just realized I spelled his name with a K and it should be a C, but Mark Echo, the clothing designer of Echo Wear, which, um, I'm sure every one of our, 17 and under listeners has at least one Mark Echo piece of clothing in
Right.
their wardrobe. Both started out as graffiti artists. There's quite a few of those people. So this is a tutorial. It's a fairly basic one, but it's a tutorial on doing graffiti. Then below that, um, gave a nice little plug to Blue Line in this one as well. But
Thank you.
below that is one, no problem, anytime. Um, there is one on doing manga style paneling. Now, of course, manga style paneling is different from what we would consider the normal comic book paneling, but the artist in this one is detailed enough that I think with just a few tweaks, you could take what he says here, and if you choose not to do it manga style but standard style, you could do very well with this. So check that out, and if you don't feel like doing that, go buy the already lined for you, or at least indicating where the lines go for you, paper from Blue Line.
Cool.
All rights reserved. Then I did one on inking a sketch card with art pens. Finally found a sketch card artist. Yes, I'm talking to you, Nicole Goff, that talks while they're doing their sketch cards. So this young lady did a fairly impressive job with smart pens doing sketch cards. And as I mentioned in the written part here, sketch cards aren't just for your convention shows anymore. They are actually their own source of income now. You would be absolutely surprised at the number of people who order sketch cards. They really want sketch cards done by people, and there are a few people making themselves a fairly good living purely on sketch cards.
Okay, I got a question here.
You
I haven't
do
watched that.
okay.
Yeah. They go into detail how they market this and how they find those buyers?
They do not, but there are ways to do that.
Okay.
Somebody
Future
who
podcast.
we know through our future podcast. There are people we know through the extended comic related family. One of them being Scott Simmons, works for Star Wars. Does a great number of Star Wars cards.
Right.
There are a few other people whose names have sadly left out of my head.
Well, I know Yuko has done them, and Joe Coroni.
Yeah, Yuko does them. Right. Oh, Joe Coroni, yeah, that's another Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's the Star Wars company especially. I mean, they're funding many sketch card artists right now, and they're people who do nothing at shows but set up an entire table of sketch cards, and they do well because people see that as a cheap investment in getting some really fantastic art. So
right.
Keep that in mind, all you artists out there looking for an avenue for income. They're small. You can get several in a pack. Therefore, if you foobar the image up, you can just easily start over rather than, having to go back as if you were doing a comic book page. So, keep it in mind. Check those out. Of course, and I may be talking out of school, but there's the annual sketch card event that happens every year.
Yes. It's still going on.
So it's still going on. So right. So keep that in mind as well. So there is that. Now, The next one after that is coloring with colored pencils. Now, I know that colored pencils is not the standard comic book fare. I personally like some of the effects you can get with colored pencils. So, um,
Well,
at least
they
give them a chance.
well they got some watercolor colored pencils out that are great.
That
You
too.
can
Yes,
blend
they
it.
do. Yeah. So, and depending on how you use standard colored pencils, you can actually get a number of really good blended effects. It just takes a lot of practice and a lot of work, and you have to use really good colored pencils like the Prismacolor or something like that. The $1.99 ones you pick up at the grocery store aren't going to work, but
No.
if you get some really good colored pencils, some really good paper, you'd be surprised with the effects that you can get out of them. So check that out. Then jumping back on the manga train for a second, there is a several video inking tutorial where the young man who's doing the tutorial goes into a great deal of detail on his process. So
Awesome.
it is definitely worth. It actually times out, I think, a little under or possibly a little over a half hour. So it's definitely worth a half hour of your time. And you can see he's pretty much just inking the one character at this point. Um, so check that out. And then conversely, I have a fairly simple, basic tutorial on just drawing comic or cartoon characters rather, using simple shapes, simple lines from the artist Billy Conley, to name some people might know in the cartooning field. He's one of those folks that does a lot of the simple tutorial shows on television. So check that out, and it's always there's always that famous thing that all the really early comic book people and cartooning people can pretty much break down all their shapes into very simple circles, squares, and triangles. From Batman on, uh, Bob Bob Kane even said that once because it's the simplicity of the line that brings people in. So
Right.
that's why people remember things like Mickey Mouse, so they remember the silhouette of Batman because it's simplicity. Now, going completely the other end to something that's not the least bit simplistic, P. Craig Russell, who's won many, many awards, shows his process on doing a Spectre cover from several years ago. And you can see just by the still image when you click over there that it is not the least bit simple. It's incredibly detailed and definitely worth looking at. So go check that out. And I believe that might just bring us up to where we were before.
Awesome. Great. Sounds
All
like
right.
I got a few videos to watch this week.
Yep.
I got to catch up. So,
Yeah, what's up with
we're
that?
going to have to touch up on the sketch cards. I made a note here. I know Joe Crony. I know Yuko. I'll pick their brains for the next podcast, and we'll discuss sketch cards and how to do them.
Yeah, that'd be a good
how
one.
to get online, with tops and stuff like that. And then, truthfully, I think they make a lot of their money directly. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, there's even
So-
people putting them on eBay. I know that, of course, that was done during the sketch card event,
Right.
but there are people doing that just every day.
hmm
And, through advertisement and such are doing quite well.
Right. We'll save it for the podcast. But yeah, I know how Joe Corona and Yuko both do that. So we'll talk about it.
Right.
But Bill, what's going on down at the boards and over at Comics Mentor?
On the boards, we're still talking about we're talking about Sketch Magazine
Woohoo.
40 being out.
Woohoo!
And of course the podcast. Every podcast has its own topic thread. Over on Comics Mentor, probably the main post this week has been the idea that your life is full of mentors, whether it's parents, teachers, family, friends. I mean, there are people in your life that affect your life in so many ways, and those people are mentors because they change your life. They have impact. Um, so one thing I challenge everybody to do is if there's somebody in your life that has done that for you, let them know. Um, I still try to teachers that I respect or that have done. I don't know. It's a long time overdue, but one of my college professors, I've been lax and I caught up with him just the other day. But that was because I wrote that post. When I say I write these things for myself, yeah, I sure do. So I took my own advice and wrote him, and just let him know what had happened in the intervening years. And but there are more people out there, and of course I plug Sketch and all the things that we're doing because that's really a big part of my life anyway. So um, that's it for me on that.
Cool. Sounds like that's got real personal with you there, bud.
A little bit.
Okay. Let's see. Over at Blue Line, we are running a 20th anniversary sale still. On Blue Line art paper products, you get 40% off. This runs, I extended it till November 1st. So jump in there. If you're hearing this podcast before November 1st, get in there, save on your papers, get your order in there. It's all papers. That's from the pros to the Strathmores to the specialty papers. Also, Mike threw on there, Mike is my brother who runs Blue Line. Get a free pack of artist sketch cards when you make a purchase of $25 or more before shipping. So not only are you getting a great deal, but now you're getting free stuff too. We know the holidays are coming up. We're really stocking up at Blue Line. We're getting tons of supplies, books. So call them. We're here for you. This company was built for the comic book artists, so please, go and check it out, bluelinepro.com.
And everybody should sign up for the newsletter too, because there are some just absolutely crazy specials in the newsletter.
Yep.
The last one that I got, so I encourage everyone to go over to bluelinepro.com, sign up for the newsletter. You wouldn't believe how inexpensive some really great stuff is right now.
On the newsletter, that's where you're going to get the blowout deals. That's where when I get something cheap, I pass it along. I know how tight things are out there. And I say really it's the company. My brother Mike runs Blue Line. He's great. We try to find stuff affordable, and we try to pass it on to you as quick as possible. So yeah, you find out about those things really on the newsletter. There's no place to really highlight it on the front of the store. We try some, we'll throw some of them out, but the newsletter comes out weekly, and just it's where all the hype goes. So yeah, please check it out. Newsletter is real simple. Go in there, click on newsletter, sign up. You're on the list. So check it out. The Sketch site updated with the latest podcast information. The Sketch Magazine podcast app's available over there. We're probably going to be updating it, and we got some new information about the site that should intrigue you a little bit coming soon. And John, we'll talk to you after the podcast more about that. So that's where I'm at. You can find me at Blue Line or Robert at Sketch Magazine, or I think, podcast at sketchmagazine.net. Gets all three of us. And how can they find you, John?
You forgot one plug, actually, that I will plug for you since you forgot it.
Okay.
You forgot the latest Claysway sketch is up, and that panda has a potty mouth. So go check out the latest Claysway sketch at claysway.com.
Yeah, I forget.
And there are now,
six
up there? Six?
Seven,
Whoa.
yeah.
7, okay.
Yeah, we're on the
There's
fourth week.
7 strips up there now, so
yeah.
I didn't check them out.
We were so deep into covers and comics and stuff, we really didn't talk about the web stuff. But yeah, the funny thing, if you look at the blurb at the bottom of it, anybody who knows anything about the strip so far knows it's really based off my two boys, and they both have learning disabilities. And my youngest is named Clay, but I happen to thought claysway.com was a cool lead-in for the strip. And he came to me and says, "Dad, the strip's good, but can you put on there that I don't say bad words?" I said, "Yeah, buddy. We'll make sure it's clear somewhere on there that you don't say bad words." So
that was really funny.
Yeah,
though.
And that's him tapping me on the shoulder, saying, "Hey, now don't make me look bad." So, but
right.
yeah, thanks, John. Appreciate it. Playsway.com.
Hey, no problem at all. But getting back to where you can reach me, you can always reach me at john@sketchmagazine.net or john@comicrelated.com. Of course, you can reach me in the forums, although I don't hang out there nearly as much as Mr. Nichols does. So you can reach me through all those ways, or just yell out the window. I might hear you.
Bill, how they gonna find you?
You can email me direct at comicsmentor@gmail.com. You can find me at Comics Mentor and read these things that I yak about, or you can go to the Comic Related forum and read any of our posts. Like I said, the magazine, there's a whole section about Sketch Magazine, things we do and things we talk about here, and all the podcasts. You can comment on all those and join in. Bring your cover ideas. Just what we've been talking about.
Right.
And Sketch Magazine 40 really exists. I held it in my hand.
It's out there. Please.
It's out there.
Send us emails. Get us questions. Get us on track of what you want to learn. We're having fun with these podcasts. They're a lot of fun. I enjoy spending time with these two guys talking about comics. This is what we used to do in the past when we go to shows. We spend the whole weekend just talking about making comics. So this is fun for us. Tell us what you want to know, and we'll be happy to share what our knowledge. Or we'll go out and find. We know people. We'll go out and find it for you if we know in advance. So please come and ask us. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks. Take care.
Good night.
Night.